Good evening. This is the Auburn Town Finance Committee. Today is October 22nd, 2025. It's 5:30 p.m. Allow me to read the open meeting law narrative. This open meeting of the Town of Auburn Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and remotely, consistent with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, which suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed to participate remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For the public to join the meeting remotely by telephone, dial 1-786-535-3211 and use access code 991-599-357, or the public can join via their computer at global.gotomeeting.com/join/991-599-357. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Please note this meeting is being recorded by Auburn Cable Television. Is anyone else recording the meeting? No. Don't appear we have anybody remote, but we'll just do a quick roll call. Members, I call your name, please answer the affirmative. Michael Marshall.
Present.
Patrick Jones.
Present.
George Graham.
Present.
That's it. And as far as town officials, employees, we have CFO Town Accountant Karen Harnos.
Present.
And Administrative Assistant Daniel Chamberlain Roberts.
Present.
Also, please note that each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted, no, we're not going to do a roll call because we do not have any members remote, so that is. We have the agenda before us this evening. Do we have anything relative to the agenda that,
Through the chair, I'd like to make a motion. We have a few people that are here to speak to us tonight, so I wanted to make a motion that we move Article 8C up in front of 2, so that both the fire and police chief could talk with us, and then have that followed by Item 4, which is the school department as well, so that way they can go on with their evening. I know there's a school committee meeting tonight as well, so we can move them along. I'm sure they can get more things done tonight, so that's a motion to move 4.
do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second to move a couple of items around to get our town officials on their way. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. So we will, I believe your motion was to take 8C, which is SEMREC review. This was a couple items requested by our committee member Patrick Jones, the Fire Chief Coleman, and Police Chief Mills are present. Patrick, I'll defer to you on what your questions were.
Well, actually, yeah, they're going to present to us, I believe it's the same presentation they did with the selectmen. I'll let them explain it for now, and then we can just hold questions till they're done.
Chief? Would you like us up there? Wherever you would like to join us.
Join us.
I don't often get this perspective from over here.
Chief, to start out, great job. As we were arriving here tonight, I saw yourself and other members of the fire department responding to a call, and clearly it had some urgency. Do you want to just tell us you had some successes for your quick response tonight already?
Sure, yeah, right before I was coming up to finance, we had a report of a house fire on Lancaster Street, and we got there very quickly, got the fire out very quickly, minimal damage, so everybody was safe, everybody was out of the house, so great success.
Great job.
Thank you. So,
Presentation, I'm not even
Yeah.
sure myself exactly what.
yeah, no
this
problem.
acronym
So we
stands
were
for.
asked to come to finance just to give an update on a vote that the select board took on September 22nd, voting to authorize the town to enter into an agreement with Central Mass Regional Communication Center to do the town's 911 dispatch. This is something that, in reality, this is something that the town has been studying for many years. We've been approached over the last decade by different regional dispatch centers or communities interested in starting a regional dispatch center. So we've reviewed 2 previous proposals. We sat in on some introductory meetings many years ago, and Chief Slukas at the time and myself along with Town Manager Jacobson. We didn't like the model that was presented. There's two ways that regional dispatch centers are developed: a host model and a regional model. A host model, and an example of a host model is the Webster Dudley Regional. Webster is the host community, which means they're in charge. They set the policy. Rutland Regional Dispatch, which is now Central Mass Regional. Rutland Regional, which was a 5-town regional center, they were a host community, and they hosted 4 other towns, not including Rutland. Rutland was in charge. Rutland knew that if they wanted to grow and they wanted to expand, that municipalities are not going to join a regional center unless they have a seat at the table, much like the Southern Worcester County Regional School District, Bay Path. We have 2, elected school committee members that serve on Bay Path. So all 11 communities that are in Bay Path, they have a seat at the table. They have a voice in terms of what's going on. So the 5 communities within Rutland Regional, all of those boards of selectmen voted unanimously across all 5 communities to form a district, to leave the host model, form a district, and now, again, create Central Mass Regional Emergency Communications. So the towns of, and we had reported this earlier in the beginning of this year, 2025, the towns of Auburn, Charlton, Southbridge, Sturbridge, and Spencer, those 5 communities. We participated in a study that was paid for by State 911 for the feasibility of whether or not we should go regional. So during that process, we were approached by Central Mass Regional and said, would you like to join an existing center instead of starting your own? And there's a tremendous amount of benefit, to that, not only financially, because State 911 is going to end up, spending less money because they're not propping up another regional, but in the essence of time. If you're moving into an existing center, it's a lot easier. So since March, Chief Mills and myself, we've been at the table with the 5 other communities. We've listened to everything that Central Mass has had to say, what kind of proposals that they've put together. And Chief Mills and I, we really liked this group. One of the things that, taking Central Mass out of it, the communities that we were working with, we were all on the same page. And, in the course of my career, I've sat down for a lot of regional initiatives, and it's not always super friendly. It's, there's a power struggle, in there usually. And we didn't see that with this group. The town managers, the police chiefs, the fire chiefs, we were all in on those meetings, and across the board, everybody was on the same page. Like, we all have the same goals, we all have the same thing in mind, we all have a vision of what we want this to be and how we want it to look. So I think it provided us with a comfort level that, as we kind of moved forward on this process. So on September 22nd, when we were here and Chief Mills and I made the recommendation to the board that we move towards regionalized dispatch, one of the things that we told them, and this is important to both Chief Mills and I, and I know he'll talk about it a little more, but one of the things that we said was, take the money out of it. Like, take, whatever realignment of money we're going to have, just take that out of the equation for a second. The town of Auburn, or any of those other communities that we've been studying this with, we will never be in a position to be able to provide the resources from a communication center standpoint as a standalone community than a regional center would be able to provide. On our best day, we have 3 dispatchers in that room, and most days that's not enough. Everybody here has seen the space, they've seen the technology. The proposal through Central Mass Regional is going to have 10 dispatchers on duty 24 hours a day. It's going to have 4 dedicated call takers. It's going to have 3 dedicated fire and EMS dispatchers that are not having anything to do with the police, and then 3 dedicated police dispatchers that have nothing to do with dispatching fire and EMS. So the delegation of work is much better. The technology and the funds that are able to come from State 911, we've toured a couple of these regional facilities, and, amazing is an understatement, when you walk in these rooms. Dedicated supervisors 24 hours a day, full-time training people, full-time quality assurance people, full-time radio people. no individual community, like I said, would ever be able to put that kind of effort into a 911 center. And for Chief Mills and I, and he can, like I said, he can speak to it because he lived it, you know, when he was a sergeant supervising dispatch. We don't have a career ladder here for our folks. You know, we have a communications director, we have one supervisor, and that's it. You know, that's what we have. There's no opportunities to move into an administrative position like a training or a QA or become a supervisor or anything like that. Training, you know, we do the bare minimum of training. They meet their annual training requirements, and that's it. It's all we can afford, and from a time perspective, it's all we can give them. So there were a lot of benefits, you know, to this from an employee perspective. We are striving to give our employees a better working condition than they have, and we're not saying that, you know, that they have poor working conditions today. But if someone wants to choose communications as a career, where you need to be is in a regional center that has 50 full-time employees with a career ladder that matches that of its police and fire counterparts. So, you know, one of the things, and I'll let Chief Mills speak to this now, but, you know, Chief Mills made one point clear to the board, and that's what we were looking for that night, to say, you know, we are recommending this. However, this recommendation needs to come with both the town manager and the Board of Selectmen's support, that there's going to need to be a reallocation of funds in future years. And if you're not willing, as the Board of Selectmen and the town manager, to say that you are willing to support the reallocation of funds to ensure that we're still covered on a public safety perspective, you know, between police and fire, then we're not, then our recommendation's going to change, you know. And most of that has to do with the police station going dark, and I'll turn it over to Chief Mills so he can talk about that.
Thank you. Appreciate you having us. One of the town manager's priorities is obviously has been customer service, and for me, you know, we're in a service industry, and that's one of the most important things for us. And again, as the chief said, one of the priorities was to ensure that we don't ever get to the point where the station's not accessible as a community police station, and people being able to come in and report things and, you know, get information back, whatever the case. So that was one of the commitments that before we went forward with it, we wanted to know that that was as close to a guarantee as we can get, you know, that was going to be supported, and that we weren't going to allow the station to run dark where, you know, you have to hit a buzzer and, you know, get seen on camera and be allowed in, buzzed in, or have a police officer return back to the station. So staffing the lobby, and we haven't exactly figured out how many police officers versus how many civilians and what that mix is going to be and how the breakout's going to be, but we have a general idea of how it's going to break out. So that was a priority, and as the chief spoke to, when I supervised the dispatch center for almost 10 years. And it was somewhat frustrating, because one of the, you know, points of emphasis for me with the police officers has been, you know, career development and speaking to all the officers and trying to figure out where they want to be in their career and things that interest them, and trying to put them into the right training patterns and you know, programs that are going to get them towards those goals. And with the dispatch center, prior to having, and we're one of the few that has our own, you know, in a single standalone community, has our own communications director. So we were able to add that, and I think collectively, we've all done a decent job of professionalizing the entire operation, you know, cutting it out to its own org a couple of years ago, having a communications director. But that was always a frustration, is that you basically you were a dispatcher. You came and you got trained, and once you were trained, you were a dispatcher. And 15 years later, if you hung around, you were still a dispatcher. And, you know, your pay went up and all that, but there was no real career opportunities or development opportunities. So that was definitely one of the enticing things about this program. And as the chief said, we were part of a study where they talked about us starting our own, you know, a brand new center with those other communities that were mentioned. And then this opportunity came around with the Rutland program. And I personally, and I know the chief does too, I like the separation of the call taker and the 911 person, and it allows for them to you know, when they do have a stressful call, they can get off the desk for a little bit, and they might, you know, and those numbers that the chief spoke of, those are preliminary, you know, those can change, obviously, as far as the deployments, and that'll be, excuse me, up to the governance groups and, you know, obviously the director over there, so, but personally, I mean, I'm excited about it because it gives our people an opportunity to grow within that profession, and it is a profession. I mean, we ask so much of them that, you know, and it's a stressful job. My stepdaughter actually is one of our dispatchers, so, you know, and she's had to deal with some things, and, you know, you sympathize, you know, I process things differently because I'm a little bit older, I guess, but the, you know, micro traumas or traumas, you know, just dealing with somebody on the phone it's a completely different world nowadays, so I think this, for us, is a great step towards professionalizing the whole thing, or even further professionalizing it.
And, you know, one of the things that we, you know, Chief Mills and I, when we presented to the board, one of the first things I said is that our recommendation on this move is in no way a reflection on the current dispatchers that we have working for us. We have amazing dispatchers who do a great job, but there's two of them in the room, and the call volume that they're tackling on most days, it can get overwhelming in that room fast. And when we met with the dispatchers, you know, I think the message that Chief Mills and I have been saying to the dispatchers is, you know, we understand change is scary, we get that, but we hope that you are viewing this as something that we're not doing to you, but something that we're doing for you. Because, you know, some of the dispatchers that are even working for us today, we know they're not even going to be here in 2 years. They have other career goals. They want to be police officers, they want to be firefighters, right? But we do have a core group of dispatchers that this is their chosen profession. And in 30 years, this is what they're going to do. And they, you know, if that's the trajectory that they want to have, then this is really the opportunity to do that. So I think, you know, from a financial perspective, you know, there's still a lot of unknowns, but I'll share some of the preliminary numbers that, you know, that are knowns, you know. So one of the things that we told the Board of Selectmen was that currently today, we're spending $1.2 million annually on our dispatch operations. That includes salary, contractual obligations, benefits. It's $1.2 million. The State 911 grant, and one of the enticing things about this program is that when we sign on, the first 3 years of us being in the regional center, it will cost us nothing. State 911 picks up 100% of our assessment for the first 3 years. And then the fourth year, it's 75%, year 5, it's 50%, and then we own 100% in year 6. So, you know, if you look at the 1.2 million, we wanted to be extremely conservative, so we didn't even escalate that 1.2 million. Like in 3 years, it's 3.6, but that will escalate because our technology costs go up, you know, salaries go up, all of those things go up. But we didn't even take that into consideration because we wanted to be conservative about it. But one of the things that we said to the selectmen was, and you know, this was the important thing is, and you all know this better than anybody, there are a lot of unmet needs, you know, in the community, especially like on the public safety side. We're talking about staffing, we're talking about all of these things. We said to the selectmen that, you know, you can't look at this move as a cost savings. You have to look at this as an opportunity for reallocation to address some things that we're not able to address, you know, currently. So right out of the gate, if we're going to address this going dark issue within the police station, well, that's a sum of money off that, you know, 1.2. So it's still too early, you know, to talk about the dollars and cents because we don't really know. We have a preliminary idea of what our assessment is. So the assessment, much like the Bay Path assessments, you know, we get, it's based off of population, off of a community's population. And we like that model too, because there's a few ways that you can be charged, but the population is the more stable one versus call volume. And I was kind of like a champion not for call volume, because when you look at our call volume just over the last decade, like we'd get punched in an assessment for that. So, you know, the population, in my opinion, is the better way to do it. And currently, right now, our estimated assessment is $360,000 a year based on our population. And that number conceivably could go down because the towns of Sutton and Oxford were not part of this original study, and both of those communities are now interested. I think Sutton is going in the next week or two, and Oxford is in their talks with their Board of Selectmen. So if Sutton and Oxford end up joining, then our assessment will go south of the 360. So because there are so many moving parts, you know, to the assessment and all of those things, and what the state is going to provide, it's still too early to talk numbers, but, you know, it's important for you to know that we're still 1.5 to 2 years away from this happening before they're even taking the town's first 911 call. So it's not something that we're even going to really be addressing in the FY27 budget. You know, you can actually talk about that.
And, yeah, I mean, the Rutland group doesn't currently even, we can't officially join because they don't have the space for us, actually. So if Southbridge.
To buy a camper like they do in construction.
So, I mean, if you take into account that we have, you know, 11 full-time dispatchers at full staff, and if Southbridge joins, they have 10, I believe. And so you start adding all these, like Southbridge and us together doubles and then triples the amount of, the number of dispatchers that they have. But as it pertains to, you know, to the potential hiring of additional officers and everything, the problem that we run into as the police department is a police officer is approximately about 12 months. When you hire somebody and conditional offer them, they're anywhere between 12 and 15 months before they actually help or count on the schedule for staffing purposes. So they're a person, you know, they're an officer, and they're accounted for as far as budgetary, but they don't help scheduling-wise until approximately at least 12 months out, from the minute you start to vet them and go through the process, a 6-month academy, a 3-month field training program, you're at close to a year, and even additional to over a year. So that's why we're, you know, the reinvesting portion of things. If we're going to need to add positions in the next 2 fiscal years in order to meet the need that's going to occur when we flip the switch and go over to the regional.
I just was aware of this and wanted the committee to hear, because when we start to look at the next couple of budgets and we are projecting and changes come up, if it should get talked about, I felt it was relevant information, because even though it's going to be here before you know it, and there might be conversations or things alluded to either in the CIP, or, I'm not saying there is, I'm just saying it could come up because of something, and someone could say, well, we're ready to transition. So I felt that even though it doesn't have a direct impact on budget decisions for today, and it is an intermunicipal, you know, like they said, they went out for a feasibility study in January, and then all of a sudden in May, they shifted gears, and then they arrived where they have, and now they're moving with it. I felt that it was prudent or important to get the boards to be at least aware of this, which is why I sort of moved to get it on the agenda.
I guess my questions are, and I know through attrition, but all the communities you've mentioned that are interested are all want to bring over, if they're all willing to take the ride to Rutland, which some of them may not, 8 or 10 folks, and you mentioned sort of their model is 50. At some point, are they able to take all of our employees should they want to transition over?
It's a good question. So the town of Sturbridge, for example, they only have 4 full-time dispatchers. No one from, so Sturbridge already voted and committed. No one from Sturbridge is going. They're going to stay in their lobby positions. There's some retirements. But the reality is that even if all of the, Spencer was in the same boat, there's only 3 full-timers, none of them are going. But if you looked at the full-time dispatch count across all of those communities, and they took all of them, they were still going to probably have to hire an additional 6 dispatchers in order to fill out the seats. So any of our current employees that want to transition over to the regional center, they will have a job if they want it. And again, that was one of the other things that, you know, kind of Chief Mills and I were looking at. It's the same thing. Like, we try to be as competitive as we can townwide, you know, in all of our positions, but we're never going to be able to pay dispatchers what regional do. You know, regional dispatch centers are able to typically have a richer benefit package, they pay more hourly, and a lot of these standalone communities are losing people to regional centers because they either want that career growth or, you know, they're making $4 or $5 more an hour. And that's with a regional center. I mean, we see dispatchers now, we see it, we've hired them. We've hired people who are jumping from wherever they're coming for $1 more an hour. You know, so you know, people are really just trying to maximize as the most we can. So that was the other thing that we were concerned about was, let's say we said we weren't interested in this, and then all of a sudden it came up, right? And they're the premier, you know, regional dispatch center in Central Mass. We were concerned about whether or not we were going to be able to retain our own standalone dispatchers if we were trying to compete with a regional center. So one of the other things I didn't mention, but one of the other things that kind of excited Chief Mills and I about this as well is that when you join a regional center, it opens you up for a tremendous amount of grant opportunities. Like, right now, we receive a nominal amount of money for, you know, state.
Support and incentive is $68,000.
68,000, you know, we're talking hundreds of thousands, if not millions, when you go regional. Now, that's not the town of Auburn that's getting that, but because we're participating in the regional. So why I bring that up is our radio system. We've invested money in our radio system over the last couple of years. You know, finally, we can hear. It's amazing. You know, so there's two ways to handle the radio system. We can either sign our radio system over to Central Mass, and now they own it and they take care of it, or we maintain it. Chief Mills and I have both communicated to the manager that we want to maintain the radio system. We want, you know, I don't anticipate that the bottom is going to fall out in a decade, but, you know, who knows? But I don't ever want to put the town in a position where if something happens, all of a sudden we don't own radio infrastructure. But even with us maintaining the system, we sign an agreement with Central Mass that allows them to utilize our radio system as part of their more global project. So when we need simulcast sites or repeaters, or when we need things replaced, that will get funded through State 911 to replace the radio infrastructure versus us putting it on our capital in order to make those replacements. So there's a capital win to this as well.
I have two more questions. I think you alluded to one that Sturbridge's, some of the folks that are currently in dispatch roles are going to stay back in a different role. Is that something we're looking at to be creative with? Because to truly go with a strictly sworn member role, one per shift per is about 9 people to get full coverage, and you know, that's looking at with benefits and about $100,000 a person, you're going to eat that $1.2 million up pretty quick just by having people. And we know that as a profession, law enforcement does not have a long line of folks that are lining up to take this career on at this point. So that's my other concern is.
It's a great question also. It's one of the things we're looking at is a blend of both civilian and sworn positions. And again, as to how many of each and what the pay scale and how they're going to fit, because we would, you know, we're going to have to probably create some sort of new position title, and, you know, how they determine the pay scale for that. I mean, I would think it would have to be similar to or competitive with what dispatchers currently get paid or what they're on pace to be paid. Otherwise, there'd be no real motivation or impetus for, you know, for someone to stay and do it. But there will be additional, because we're going to create the station, that area, the lobby, and the station would become its own sector of responsibility. So we'd add a sector. So somewhere somewhere between, I anticipate 4 or 5 police officers and then another possibly 3 or 4 civilian positions. And figuring out scheduling, and I mean, they're all things that I haven't.
I believe you have to do a 24-hour shift, right? You have to cover 24 hours.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
3 shifts.
Correct.
My last question is, as you made connections to the model that the regional school districts, that Bay Path currently does, so there's a level of commitment by the municipality for that period of time, and things like if the Rutland Regional decides they were going to build a building, they would go out to their member communities. What is the length of time that we're committed to that, and then could we see things in the future where all X number of communities are based on a certain formula that we see are looking to build a building or structure somewhere, wherever they decide to relocate, and that we'd be looking at some sort of bonding or something to pay
Yeah,
for something like that.
so that's a great question. Another advantage to the regional system is currently Central Mass is in negotiations to purchase a building on Albert Street in Auburn. They have another location that they're looking at, but they're hopeful, and their primary site is on Albert Street in Auburn. They've made an offer on the building. If the offer were to be accepted, State 911 would pay 100% of the cost to purchase the building and renovate the building. So that wouldn't be an assessment on the member community. The assessment that we're taking on is strictly for our portion of the 911 activity based on our call volume. So even down the road, if renovations were to be made or something like that, we would be applying through the 911 state incentive grant to try to get whatever it's done. The state is highly incentivizing communities to go regional. There's currently 32 regional 911 centers in Massachusetts. My guess is that in another 5 years, that number will probably double. You know, the state is cautious. They're making sure that even if you hint around this mandatory word, they're very quick to say, we're not telling anybody that they need to go. But you can see the direction that we're going. They're highly incentivizing it, and you can see that the state's plan is they want to try to get down to a minimal, a double-digit number of PSAPs in the state versus the 300 some odd that they had a decade ago. So they're,
Public Safety Access
I'm
Points.
sorry, the acronym, we were just
Answering
talking
that.
about, yeah.
Public Safety
PSAP,
Answering
Public Safety Answering Point, it's called a PSAP. So it's essentially the 911 console. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you can see where they're going, and that was another reason why Chief Mills and I were on this. It's like, listen, we can either be part of a group right now of people that we want to be in business with and be a part of this thing from the ground up, or in 5-6 years, we can be told by the state what regional center we're going to, So we chose option A on that one.
I guess my last question is just, as employees under this, I'm going to use the wrong term.
It's a district.
It's a district.
Yep.
Under this district, their benefits, retirement benefits, all that fall under the district?
That's correct.
The OPEB and all that stuff is all, they manage themselves in a similar fashion?
That is correct. Yep. So our 11 employees would then become employees of the district, and then they have, again, their own hierarchy. And there's a couple different operations boards, so the chief and I would serve on the operations board, dealing with like the emergency side. The town managers and administrators would serve on the administrative board, policy, HR, and those things. And then Karen and her counterparts in the CFO world, they would serve essentially as the fiduciary and the finance committee. So there's a lot of cross-pollination to make sure that everything is swinging right. So there's representation from the community in terms of the decisions that are made.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
All right. If anything else comes up, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you
All right.
for making the time.
Absolutely. Anytime. Have a great night.
Thanks.
And now item 4, right?
Yes, okay, we're going to move to item 4 on the agenda, which is the review of Article 3, Special Town Meeting Amendment. See here. Dalton Public Schools, Business Manager, Ms. Stanek, and Mr. Gregwell. You're gonna let...
All right, good evening. Yes, I'm Jennifer Stanek, the business manager for Auburn Public Schools, and Glenn Gregoire is our facilities director, also with me. Dr. Chamberlain had spoke to the select board last week, and so it's my turn this week with the finance committee, so thank you for having me. As you know, we have a serious parking lot issue at Swanson Road Intermediate School, and we have been working with Town Manager Vecchio and CFO Harnois and the DPW department to address this collaboratively. This began in the spring with the pavement sinking in one area, which was thought to be contained to one section until the engineers went in with the cameras. So, and I'm going to share those pictures with you to kind of give you a little better view of what's going on. So the problem is a drainage issue with the chamber that's under the surface. And forgive me, this is certainly not my area of expertise. So this is the chamber that you see here. There are many leaks that you can see through the pictures that were shared by the engineers and the engineering firm. So a camera was put through the system, and unfortunately, it was not contained to that one section that the pavement was sinking. Although the pavement is not compromised at this time elsewhere, it could happen at any time. So here you can see the camera going through this chamber. The rocks are supposed to be at the bottom, but they're not supposed to be coming through the holes. So here you can see that the side walls are compromised and the rocks are coming through where it should be solid. There are also too many holes placed in the top of the chamber. That there's supposed to be just a certain number at the top of the chamber, but there were more than there should be. The chamber should also be solid, so as you can see, that is not the case here. And here, if you look, there's kind of these black lines at the bottom. Those are hairline cracks along the base of the chamber, which are also compromising that chamber. So the engineer at this time has recommended that we fix the full chamber, and Joanna Paquin, our DPW director and engineer, agrees with this assessment. So if we only fix one portion, the first initial portion, we are at risk of another failure and additional funds being needed at a later date. So right now, we have it open because we needed to go in and see what was going on. If we close it and open it up a second time, it's going to cost much more. We'll also be able to save money by doing the entire project now, and they'll also be able to reuse some of the materials, those rocks at the bottom of the chamber. The parking lot does pose a safety and liability issue for risk for our families, our staff, and our community at large. So Dr. Chamberlain and I have worked with Dory Vecchio and Karen Harnois to amend our article and to use funds that we were not aware of in the school department left over from the Auburn Middle School building project, along with additional funds from the Swanson Road CIP funds that will not be needed due to the ARPA project being conducted by Joe Fahey. So our initial quote was $132,999, and now the additional section will be $155,400. So our estimate is $288,399. And as we know, that's an estimate. Construction costs, there may be a little less, we hope, or it could be a little bit more. So we are respectfully requesting to utilize $265,553.52 from the middle school project and $34,446.48 from Swiss CIP funds for a total of $300,000. We feel that that is a fair estimate based on the estimates from the engineer. This is going to be the amended article, which Dr. Chamberlain will make on the floor at the special town meeting. Please know that we have explored insurance options, which have not provided good answers or much hope. And we also checked in on the warranty, which has expired. So there is definitely an urgency around this project due to our New England weather and paving. So currently, we have staff parking on fields at Swanson Road and further down at Bryn Mawr School, which is also going to pose a problem with snow, plowing, and we don't want to do damage to our fields either. So we would respectfully request your support for this amended article, and thank you for your consideration. Do you have any other questions for me? And
Any questions for
and
Stanek? My question is this just for the repair to the drainage? Or is this drainage, curbing, paving? Is this, it just doesn't seem like, for all the stuff that comes before us, $300,000 for what I saw when I went by the other day.
that is
Doesn't seem like nearly enough. That's just,
right. We do believe that that is the chamber, the pavement,
I
the
was going to say
whole
it's a
project.
tie, so, yeah.
What's that? You thought it was aye?
Jennifer, can you go back one slide? I just missed a number. Thank you very much.
Yep. So that is supposed to be the whole project, start to finish, and paving it
So you've
and
got
having
about
it ready.
$11,000 that you're hoping that, you know, you've got that much of a cushion.
A little bit of a cushion,
Cushion,
yes.
right. That's where I was going to ask, but, yeah.
So
And I guess my question is, that drainage area, where does it, is it just impacting that front parking lot? Is the other, the area where the parent drop-off, is that area been deemed?
we do not believe that that is compromised. We haven't, yep, come right up.
The water runoff from that parking lot feeds that system. There is no storm water relief up in the parking lot where they're parking right now. The water hits the drains and the curbs and runs into this system, which is in the front parking lot. There's no storm water relief there. All the water from that area is delivered to the front of the building. It's designed to fill the cavity and go up and down and not hit our water treatment plant. It really is the overflow of 3 or 4 days of rain where it can't penetrate into the ground. It's designed to stop the water from hitting our systems, but there is no treatment plant. There's no treatment of the water up above that. It's only the front parking lot is the stormwater relief system.
I guess that would be my other question. We've heard a lot over the years, a lot from Joanna relative to the new federal standards for stormwater runoff. Will this meet all the standards and kind of get us ahead a little bit in terms of that particular facility?
So, to the chair. Yes. We've already moved to recommend the approval of Article 3, right? So do we have to take any additional action? I mean, we could confirm that we still recommend approval, but I don't know that we necessarily need to take any
the
votes or
amended?
anything like that. I don't know what you're comfortable with, but.
I don't know, I guess that would be, so we've already set forth our,
We approved, what we're discussing is we've recommended that we supported Article 3 to begin with, and the numbers have changed, so I guess is it just, we don't want to change I don't believe we want to change our support, so we're just questioning whether we need to vote.
I mean, should we be asked on the floor that night of town meeting? I mean,
Well, when we read off, we're going to read that we support it anyway. We're not making a change, so I see why
But if
you're
we were, when Dr. Chamberlain read off the amended,
Well, then-
if someone were to raise their hand and ask, does the finance committee support
Right,
this?
I would say that I'll move that we keep our recommendation to approve. How would that be? Make a motion that we still contain our recommendation. to
Confirm our
approve.
recommendation?
Keep our original recommendation to approve.
I think we may have to,
amended article,
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so I'm going to make a motion that we still keep our recommendation to approve the amended article.
Second.
Motion and second to, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, much appreciated.
Pretty soon, the education system's going to come up with artificial intelligence, so Dr. Chamberlain can be in both places at once. We won't know which one's real. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, let's see if we can get back on order now. So the first one that we did the call to order, so the reorganization. Does anybody have any issues before we start the discussion relative to reorganization?
When you said before we just started discussion, so I
Well,
thought-
before we move into the actual process of reorganizing.
Yeah, I guess, yes, I would like to. So, I first of all, I want to commend Danielle for a lot of reasons. She supports the town manager on a full-time basis. Furthermore, she supports the Board of Selectmen and other staff. She's got to be someone who has to be there for everybody in her role. And then she also has to be responsible for her support to our board. So with that said, I think, she has done such a great job at stepping into her role, which is still a growing role. And I commend her on catching this because there is a section of the selectmen's bylaws that state that they like to see that the boards reorganize. In researching it a little further, I went into the general bylaws of the town, and there is a section in the general bylaws that states that it's underneath all town officers and committees. And in section 3.2, it says appointed boards. All appointed boards shall conduct regular meetings and shall reorganize at the most appropriate opportunity in the fiscal year. So unfortunately, the way I envision this, and I think it's out of Danielle's hands, is that she's trying to let us know that there's an ordinance out there that says that we should reorganize, because it does say under the selectmen that all boards and organized, they would like to see that. However, you can't have an ordinance or whatever we want to call these 3.0s in the bylaws. You're in legal, so you might understand it a little better, but I believe that there's a conflict in the bylaws because of this reason. Now, I have a 25 or 30-minute challenge on this, which I don't want to take up all the board's time. But what I really believe needs to happen is that I think that it's always been the best intention of this board on a regular basis for the last many, many years to reorganize in December. And we are in accordance with the bylaws in the sections labeled 3.2 appointing boards. So unless the Board of Selectmen or the town clerk want to initiate formal correspondence to the Finance Committee requesting that we change our reorganization, rather, if they want to request that we do it, I don't see any reason why this should have to be on the agenda anymore. And I do have several other points. One of the things that I think is critical to this, that if I don't bring it up now, I'm going to bring it up in about 15 minutes on another topic, is that there was a time in the past, I know we've done a charter change in the town, and I know we've had other changes in the town, but one of the things that has happened is we spend from January, even November, which is coming up December, to work on a budget for the coming year. And as we get closer to April, it gets pretty tight, and then we go to town meeting in May and we approve it. And what is not something that I'm used to seeing and that I'm seeing a lot of is how we're approving a fiscal year budget, and we get into early July. And I know we have through the accounting's office, and our CFO, Karen Noyes, is here today, and she'll tell you we have to get, there's a deadline. So we have to get these year-end transfers done in July. And then normally, because we've just implemented a new budget 15 days earlier, the Finance Committee never really meets until October, November. So I then am concerned at the integrity of the budget that we're putting forth if we're automatically now having to do transfers in the early months. Because normally, this would not have been an issue, because in the past, when the Finance Committee ran, the Finance Committee would do the transfers in July at year end, and it'd be like, have a nice summer and fall, and we'll call you in October when we get ready for the new budget season. So I think that part of this appointing section in the bylaws was because some boards may meet only quarterly, some boards may meet only semi-annually, and it's, in general, this board doesn't normally, or hadn't met much during July, August, September, October. So I feel like, that's not the right word, I believe that we are clear in our ability to reorganize in December as we have in the past, and would just like to hold pace with that unless the Board of Selectmen or the town clerk, and through the chair, if you would like to send some correspondence to them requesting clarity, or to town council. But I think at this point, Danielle is doing a good job at trying to make sure that she's participating in our structure because of the work that she does for our board. But I think, unfortunately, in this case, we've stumbled on a conflict in the communication that governs us.
Okay. I guess I'm going to ask for some clarification, and I don't know if, Karen, if you're able to assist us with it, because I think in one of the communications that Danielle had sent out to us, there was a reference, and I believe that came from the town clerk's office. Was that
Well,
there? Did
I
you
have the correspondence right here, and it says, it states a couple of things, which I'm not going to reiterate it, but it says, however, the exact timing, in Massachusetts, a municipal finance committee typically organizes at the beginning of the new fiscal year. However, the exact committee typically reorganizes however, the exact timing and specific procedures are determined by the local town bylaws. Thus, the local town bylaws, which are right here in section 3, says that all appointed boards must conduct regular meetings and shall reorganize at the most appropriate opportunity in the fiscal year.
Okay. Do we know by chance the dates that we reorganized over the last several years?
I think they've all been early December, I can't say, but I know that we usually reorganize before we break for the holidays. It's usually after Thanksgiving.
I just wanted, factually from past, I can't recall myself, but I'm just,
I won't swear to this, but I've been on the committee for 5 or 6 years now, and my impression was that we did typically reorganize in July, because we have new appointments typically on a July to July 3-year
Okay.
schedule. Each one of us is appointed for 3 years, and our terms end on June 30th of whichever
Of
year in
different
the cycle
years,
is.
right,
It
yeah.
is, and my understanding has always been that the reorganization was an opportunity if new members, if people were not reappointed, or if new members were reappointed, or whatever else. That was the reason that we reorganized.
And that's a
that.
whole nother, right,
Yeah.
right, if new people, so technically, if even one individual, say we have, because we should be a 7 precinct, we should be 5 precincts and 2 at large.
Yes.
So technically, if we had someone, say, in precinct 6, we'll pick one that isn't here, but if we had a 6th, right? And they left their term, and a new appointed person came on, let's say in July, we reorganized, because Danielle puts it on the agenda, and then we will reorganize, and then in July, somebody resigns and a new person from precinct 6 comes in October, we're supposed to reorganize in October again, I believe, because we've taken on a new member, or if it has to wait for the following year.
I think you would only have to reorganize should one of the positions, chair or vice chair,
Leave.
leave.
Not the precinct itself.
I don't think the-
Only if it's the.
I honestly, my recollection is that when you became chair, because our previous chairwoman was elected to a position on the select board, we reorganized shortly thereafter, likely in July, because her term would have started, when did she get elected? That's a town election, right? So it would have been a May election?
Right.
So, yeah, I'm not disputing your
so-
recollection, I don't know.
No, but
And
it's interesting.
I could
'cause
have,
you've been
but I
on-
did not look
You've been on a
back.
couple of years more than I
Yeah.
have, and like you said, in your earlier years, it was July, and then when I came on, it's been 2 Christmases, because I think this will be my 3rd year, because I know that, because Sharon was finishing up, and both years we organized, when Sharon was here, and last year we reorganized in December, I
Yeah,
remember that.
I
clearly.
didn't look back at the minutes, so
Yeah.
I can't say one way or the other.
So-
I don't remember reorganizing in December. I know at least once we've reorganized in July. I also just don't think it really matters.
So do you think we reorganized because Ms. Kavanaugh, we normally would have done it in July, but because Ms. Kavanaugh moved forward, that was the trigger that made us reorganize again? Do you think that?
No,
could be it?
I was going to say, I believe we reorganized in July after Ann was elected to the select board, because she stepped down
Because of the
And
time.
shortly after the election.
Her timing lined up.
Yeah, and with town elections and with the appointment cycle, typically, that's, if we're going to have new members, that would be when we would. We all serve
So then
upon
if
the appointment by the select board.
So if we
with the town manager's
reorganize
recommendation,
tonight,
so.
then we should reorganize next July. Now,
I
I
agree.
will mention that one of the challenges we have in doing it this evening is we're down 3 people. And the other challenge we have is that we could also be down 3 people in July, which is something I want to mention. But I guess at this point, because it has moved through several and I don't like to see the agendas, I'm willing to reorganize tonight. But what I'd like to do is just clarify that, you know, we want to keep it to July so Danielle can move on to more important things, so can the rest of us.
She's had these scripts ready for multiple meetings. She's been practicing, and I think that's the way to go. And if that's the Secretary of State's office or whoever that first quote was from, you know, was recommending July 1 for consistency across the, and it keeps consistent for the clerk's office to know that they need to, you know, get these documents in line for all of their committees at once.
Sure.
Reappointments come in that same vein that you mentioned, so we're all either continuing or moving on to other things at that point. I think the July makes sense. And it
So in a
is.
couple of years, when you run for governor in the middle of December, we're going to have to reorganize twice.
Right, Governor, yes. Yeah.
Then you know what? I say that's really all I want to add. And you saved me a lot of other, you know, I think there's reasons for both. But I just think that if we're going to just stick to the script, July is great. Let's just do it.
Okay, it was a good discussion.
That's
Let's,
really what I got was of the impression that we'd been doing it in December. Because earlier in my prior term, we had done it in December, because we never met from July until October.
Sure.
That's why it's written there, because some boards only meet quarterly. So it's sort of impossible to reorganize when you're not meeting,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So I'm cool with it.
Okay.
So
Reorganization.
now, does Danielle take the gavel away from you?
Danielle does take the,
Gavel.
for the moment. Yeah, here you go.
Take it.
Hold on to that. Yeah,
All right. The moment. Thank you.
there you go.
All right, so I will now open the nominations for chairman.
I would like to nominate Kevin Kennedy to be chair of the Finance Committee.
Okay. Vice Chair Mike Marshall has nominated Kevin Kennedy as chair. Is there a second for Kevin Kennedy as chair? Okay. Thank you, George. So the nomination for Kevin Kennedy has been seconded by Member George Graham. Are there any other nominations for chair?
I move that we close nominations.
Second.
Seeing none, the nominations are closed. I was pausing for dramatic effect. So we'll now take a roll call vote for Kevin Kennedy as chair. Mr. Kevin Kennedy.
So,
You accept. Mike Marshall.
Yes.
And Patrick Jones.
Yes.
George Graham.
Yes.
All right. Congratulations, Mr. Kennedy. I now turn the remainder of the meeting over to you to conduct nominations and selection for vice chair.
Take it away from her, please.
it's dangerous. Okay, I will now open the nomination for vice chair.
I'll nominate Mike Marshall for vice chair if he'll accept.
Patrick's nominated Michael Marshall as vice chair. Is there a second for Michael? George has seconded that. Are there any, nominations, seconded by another? Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Seeing none, nominations are now closed. Finance Committee has nominated Michael Marshall as vice chair. Is there a second for that? Okay, for a second?
Yeah, we got a second.
Okay. Been seconded by him. We'll now take a roll call vote for the Michael Marshall as vice chair. I will vote in favor. Michael, you'll accept? Sure. Patrick?
Yes.
And George? Yes. Congratulations, Michael.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, yeah. All right.
Well done. Good job.
It's probably the most difficult thing we do all year.
It might be.
Okay, we have number 3 on our agenda. So make recommendations on special town meeting warrant articles 11 and 12. These were 2 that we had before us, but they didn't have a dollar amount at that time. So Article 11, to see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $250,000 from free cash to the town OPEB, other post-employee benefits trust, or enact on anything relative thereto. And this is from the town manager's office. Do we have a recommendation on that one?
I just have one question.
Yes.
Karen, so will you, if you know, will you remind me what the original budgeted OPEB contribution was for this fiscal year? Because I'm assuming this is like in addition to already,
It is not. This is
No?
actually this will be the annual contribution for
and is
fiscal
that in
26.
line with what we typically have done in the past?
No, it's actually less. In the several past years, we've been doing 500,000. But because the free cash the certified free cash isn't as large as it was in the past. The recommendation is for 250,000.
Again, if you know, like, what percentage of our OPEB liability do we believe is currently funded and would be with this
So
additional sum?
the OPEB liability right now is estimated at 63.3 million. The balance in the OPEB trust is 10, let me just see here, it's 10.8 million.
Just, go ahead, Patrick, go ahead.
So I have several things that I'm going to mention, and I checked on this ahead of time, and because we're talking about OPEB, I can bring this up, because I was going to table it for next meeting. But there's a couple of things that I want to mention, and I'm going to start right off with my motion. I'd like to make a motion that, and I'm not sure exactly how to do this, but I want to make a motion tonight that the Finance Committee develop a subcommittee of an OPEB trust committee. And I'll go on and explain why, if you'll just be patient with me. Well, actually, and I'm forming it now, because right now I just want to form the committee. I can move forward with the motion to, this is going to go before council, because there's a couple of logistics, but if you'll just bear with me. I believe that our advisors are Bartholomew. And I believe that this OPEB committee should consist of 2 people from the Finance Committee, the town CFO, the assistant town manager, or 1 or 2 residents of town meeting. And the reason why is, there are several reasons why. Many towns and communities have an advisory OPEB board, and some of them have formed them at the onset of the OPEB deposit, and some of them wait till there's a little bit of money. So because if you would, I believe about a year or 2 ago, so every year there is a assessment or an evaluation done on OPEB. And what happens is when that is assessed, there's a discount rate. And then there's also the value of the portfolio, and that fluctuates. There's the principal and the gain. So a little while back, because we did have some money in it, our value was closer to around 10 or 11, but I think our liability was down because of the discount rate and the value of the portfolio to about 56 million. So 10 into 56 million is almost 20%. So the reason why this is all really valuable and important is because it's a biannual report. What would happen is we have a diversified skill set in town managers. We have a diversified skill set in the Board of Selectmen. And we have just really a finance team that consists of a CFO and a finance committee. And what normally happens is the Bartholomew, who oversees it, they're the main advisors. They would then come to either, I don't know how it's happening now, but I don't know if they reported to Ed as the CFO and what Ed might have done. But usually when you have an OPEB trust, Bartholomew will meet with that OPEB trust committee once a year and give them an annual report. And then usually they come on a second year, and that's when they say, okay, this is the current discount rate, this is the value of your portfolio, and this is your current liability, because that discount rate shifts every other year. And the reason why this is important is because we still have to, even if we can get to 50%, and if you can just bear with me, because there's a lot and I'm trying to make it really short, we don't need liquidity of this OPEB trust in our lifetime. And I mean myself as a retiree, not even associated with it. But it is going to take another decade or 2 for this even to grow to 50%. But when we get to 30, 35 million, we're going to be at 50%. And also, what we weren't told is that even though we're putting 250, I have the OPEB summary I got a report, I forgot who gave it to me and when, but we were given it. But right now, they're putting in the employees themselves contribute. So they've been putting in about 200,000. So even though we've been, as a committee, as a town, we're putting in 250 this year, it's great to see that we have the potential to reach almost our 500 mark. Because, so you have to figure in the decade or so that this has been going, they've been putting almost close to 600 to 750,000 in. We're at 500. We have a strong commitment to OPEB. But the reason why this is all major is because we're not going to, and you're going to need a board that is going to, and the reason why I say town meeting is because there are investment bankers, there are people that live in town that have solid knowledge, that understand the parameters of an OPEB. They understand long-term investing. They understand the concerns and the constraints. They can work with the advisory board, and it's a long-standing board to keep tabs on something that a town manager or a select board that comes and goes every 3 to 5 years is only going to have they shouldn't have immediate impact on it. But a CFO sitting in the seat who works with the numbers all the time is a critical person because they're the conduit between the budget, and the finances of the town as the committee is. And so, I'll just go on. So some of the key issues here are that the return on investment also impacts the ability for us to meet our goals. So, we're putting in good money, and what we want to do is we want to get the maximum return the safest way we can. And then when we get to 50 or 60 or 75%, we can start to use that money in future years to mitigate the expense that's going to hit the town. And you've got to put yourself in a position where you're moving that along in such a way that you're able to achieve that goal. And so it's for those reasons that, and the way I envision it, is that this OPEB Trust Committee, which might only have to meet once or twice a year, we can write the parameters, if we, maybe what I would do is I will change my motion to say that I move that we create an OPEB Search Committee. And we can get the specifics for the next meeting and table it. But we need, and my input, so now I'm gonna give you one other piece of information that I think will help you in understanding this. I think it's an important stepping stone for people on the Finance Committee. We need to be engaged in these kinds of finances in our town. They should not be just going through the Board of Selectmen, who are just maybe keeping an eye on it once or twice a year when free cash comes up and we're talking about OPEB. But we should be a committee that's keeping in touch and raising questions or setting parameters that would interact with Bartholomew or whoever our advisors are going forward. At the end of the day, I just want the safest return and people to watch it, other than leaving it at the hands of positions that are coming and going. So if we want to do it as a search committee or whatever, but I just think that, and I can speak for Marlborough. As the finance director for the city of Marlborough, I was the chairman of the OPEB committee. And the design that I am giving you is the design that we had. We had our auditor, we had our chief finance director, we had the chairman of the city council, we had 2 outside people, and both of them were investment analysts. And we worked with Bartholomew at that time, and we were responsible at the end of every meeting to formulate a communication and forward it to the finance committee and to the mayor. And so with 10 growing to 11 to $12 million, we're going to put almost 500,000 into it this year. We're going to be over 11 or 12. You want to make the safest and best investment, and I think it's time that we formulate that board because I think we're behind other communities. So that's sort of why I brought it up now. I know we're going to be talking about whether we approve this or not, but because we've brought up OPEB, I need to get in front of this because I believe that it is a charge that belongs on the Finance Committee.
Okay. I guess I'll speak to it. I have similar concerns on the amount, only because I've felt over the years we've been really trying to get, I don't know if it was a financial plan, was the $500,000. I think at some point we had made a vote, whether that was a recommendation or not, I'm not positive. But I do feel like OPEB, not that I'm saying it's an easy one to say, things are tight this year, we'll just give a little bit less. So I kind of do like the direction that Patrick's talking about, a group that will sort of hone their focus on it. I don't know that that is something that this committee can request.
Well, then, if you-
But I think through the CFO to make inquiries as to how that would occur, I think it may be the Board of Selectmen that is able to form a subcommittee, subgroup, and make appointments to that committee.
In all due respect to my peers on the select board, and this is something maybe I need to revisit, but the last time I was in check in this town, major financial decisions like this didn't come through the selectmen. And I'm not trying to be negative about it or condescending, but, I'm just concerned that if it goes into the selectmen's hands, that people from the finance committee or the CFO might not be in their purview as critical people to be on this. And I by far, believe that they are critical people to be on it, because in my view, the select board is over they umbrella the whole town, whether it's labor relations, whether it's HR, whether it's the town manager. They should not be segregated. They should not just be worried about OPEB, and so therefore, I think we would be in a better position as a board to govern that. So I'm just...
I agree with your makeup of the board. I like the way that you've outlined it. I like the idea of a group that's going to focus on it. I just don't know that we have any authority to create it, appoint people to it. There would be swearing-ins, there would be terms. I think all of that, and again, I'm not an expert on the town charter.
Yep.
I think that has to be, and I think we could draft something saying a model of what you envision it to look like, because I think I agree exactly as how you've sort of outlined it, but I think we would have to present that as it's been discussed at finance to the select board, and we recommend that this be explored, and this would be the way it would be
so then...
formulated.
So then I guess I have to retract my motion, and I guess I would say that through the chair, I would like to see this drafted and presented at the next I don't know when the selectmen meet again. I don't know if we'll have time to formulate it. The reason why I want to get in front of it is because I think it's critical that it happens, and I know that the selectmen have a lot on their plate, and to me, it's just a financial issue. It's not something that really, impacts the community as a whole in the moment. So that's why and in the past, we've developed subcommittees on the Finance Committee. So there was when the legislature changed, and we had compensating balances. They hit the newspapers. Banks were offering them to consumers. A committee member walked into the Finance Committee, said, look, banks are creating compensating balances. The chair said, we'd like to set up a subcommittee to research and bring a proposal forward. So we set up a subcommittee, and the committee was formed through the Finance Committee. The end results were implemented by the Finance Committee. So because this is a financial matter, I didn't see that anything like that has changed.
The only thing I've seen in my time is, was I was selected to be on, I think the chair said, would you be the finance representative on a committee? But I believe that committee was established by the Board of Selectmen. And like, the chair at that time said, would you be our representative on it? So I was able to represent the Finance Committee on that. But I think if you drafted something, and then at our next meeting, we'll put it on the agenda, and then the committee can read it, and we can vote on it, make some changes if we want, and then ask that that be presented through town administration to the Board of Selectmen as a recommendation. And it certainly, if it was on, and then got onto the Select Board's agenda, then, we would be able to speak to why you're requesting that, and certainly you could represent finance, and say why we voted to approve it, and what the language was, and the makeup of that committee, and the reasons why that committee is important to, stay focused on this is something which is a long-term...
policy board. It's a long-term policy board, right. Policy managing board, right.
So that's my thought. Does anybody else have any other thoughts on it? I mean, if you think that the charter allows us to do it, but
Well, through the chair, would I have permission to just maybe give a call into Ann Kavanaugh just as the chairman of the select board, and just get some feedback from her.
Sure.
As to whether she even thinks we have to, one of the concerns I have is I see a lot of work, and I don't want to have to create a lot of work and then find out that I did it for nothing.
Sure.
So I think at this point, through the chair, I will work on the proposal that you said to bring it before the next meeting, and then at the same time, I'll reach out to one of the chairman of the select board and just find out if, what we're doing. She may advise me, Madam Chair may advise me to, seek other avenues, but at the same time, it'll bring them aware of what we're trying to do, and then we'll follow up at the next meeting.
And we can certainly, on another avenue, should the chair of the select board not have all the information relative, certainly we can ask the CFO to explore it as well, as to how committees like that are formed.
And I have to realize, too, that I came into a seat that was given to me because of my predecessor leaving. The board already existed, so I don't know the protocol on how the board was formed. I knew it existed, and they do exist in other communities.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, very good. So with that,
We'll go back to...
back to whether 250, I mean, to Michael and to your question about the 250, there is an employee contribution, and in the last couple of years, it's been above 200,000. And so I sense that even though our part of that is 250, Karen, I believe we'd be closer to 450, 500,000 with that other amount. Is that accurate?
I do have some employee contribution figures, and in fiscal '25, 264,000 was the employee contribution.
So our categories for warrant articles are...
So I would just say on 11, I'd make a motion to support the 250. I'd like to have seen more, but at this point, that's out of our hands because that's what we've been given as a figure. So I don't know that we... Sure. So I move to recommend approval of Article 11.
Motion to recommend approval, and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Article 12, to see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $100,000 from free cash to the town's stabilization fund or enact relative thereto. Karen, anything relative to the number on this one, or?
In this case as well, in the previous year, we put through 250,000 for the contributions. But again, because of the free cash that's certified as being less because of the fiscal constraints, that we're recommending 100,000. Right now, we have about 4.7 million in stabilization. So this would bring us up to 4.8.
Can you remind me what we're allowed to use stabilization funds for? Is it essentially just like
Yeah.
anything, like
yeah.
any purpose if we decide we need it, or is it
Any
restricted
municipal
in any way?
purpose, but it does take a 2/3 to appropriate out of the stabilization, so a higher percentage.
Any questions?
Motion to recommend approval
Second.
of Article 12.
Motion and a second to recommend approval of Article 12. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So we've done 2, 3, 4. No transfer requests. Okay, I think other items that were asked, Mr. Jones asked to be on this one, we've already covered one. A of this one is meetings over the next coming fiscal year. Scheduling of meetings, I believe this is...
Sure. So the reason why I brought this up is this has been a very difficult topic for me to speak about all year. I wanted to make a couple of recommendations. I wanted to ask the board if they believe that we should pick a Wednesday, second or third Wednesday of the month. So on non-budget, so we meet to go over the budget usually February through April. Then we have two more, usually two town meetings, so we have to meet for those. And these are special meetings, so we have a special meeting for the two town warrants. Then we usually have a special meeting because it's year-end in July. Those are sort of Wednesdays that are attached to our life as Finance Committee members. And I think what I'd like to see, and I think a lot of people would benefit from this, is for us to try to narrow down whether we want to do the second Wednesday or the third Wednesday of every month. That doesn't include those two. And the reason why I'm suggesting that is because I juggle my schedule to make this meeting. So I've sort of felt, I had a commitment this evening, but unfortunately I was available on the 4th, the 7th, and the 14th. I had an appointment today and I canceled it and made it tomorrow because this was an important meeting. And so for me, if we were meeting the second Wednesday of every month that are formulated into the equation I gave you, I'd know, gee, this is the second Wednesday of the month. I know if we're gonna have a finance committee, it's gonna be that Wednesday. Karen would know that that's the Wednesday that we're gonna meet, and she could prepare, and the town could prepare. Danielle could prepare, and we would know that that's a fixed meeting if a meeting is going to be needed. But I think what happens is, we know we're going to meet in October, so now I don't know whether it's going to be the 7th, I don't know whether it's going to be the 14th, I don't know whether it's going to be the 15th or the 22nd. I hope it's going to be the 7th or the 15th, and then I lose out because it's the 22nd. And as you can see, we have other members that aren't here this evening. The format of this board is that it's 5 precincts and 2 people appointed at large. However, we do have a couple of double people because some precincts have not taken advantage of their precinct opening, right? So technically, we should be, like many other boards, we should be fully staffed when we're having a meeting out of respect for the individuals and the managers that come before us for transfers, that we have to ask them to be available for us. When other town administration or senior staff members like Ms. Sonoyas or the town manager or the chief of police, they make themselves available. So I feel or believe that because we're asking so much of it, that there was some talk about individuals, I think you have a commitment to be here to the best of your ability, but it would take a lot of work off of Danielle if she didn't have to call to get everybody. But at the same time, these individuals should be here, and if there's a way to, and that's why I said, do we pick the second or third? Because now nobody has, they can say, look, I know we're gonna meet the second Tuesday of every month. I'll leave that open. They've got the other 3 or 4 open. So, I mean, again, this is one of those areas where I have a lot of feedback, but I just don't, from where I sit as a board member, I feel like I have to be available now 52 Wednesdays a year, because I never know when we're going to call a meeting. And even though we discuss it sometimes, and in light of tonight, unfortunately with the 4 of us here and one of us who stepped up because of not feeling well, there are, if one other person didn't make it, we wouldn't have a quorum.
Right.
And then furthermore, if 7 of us could make it on the 14th, but only 4 of us could make it on the 22nd, then we should have met on the 14th, because it's only fair to the other members of this board that their schedule be considered in the schedule.
So, just to speak to it, just to clarify the current way that the scheduling is Danielle will basically contact me, say, how does the 22nd work? That works fine for me, and she puts out basically the email, which is in essence a poll, right? A poll of who's available. If all of you got back to her and said, we don't have enough people, we can't meet, then we would have to make adjustments. So that's kind of how it happens. Some of it is just logistics. Very thankful that as a committee that we have Danielle, because I certainly don't have time to, I can't send out a group email, I can't send out a group text because we'd be violating the open meeting law. So I'd have to reach out and to each person kind of jot down which days you're available, and then I'll be honest, I don't have time to do that with the 6 additional members of the committee. But I can appreciate, and I do think I like the idea that we pick a standard Wednesday, whether it's the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 1st, whatever it may be, But I guess my question would be logistically, would there be, and I think there would be in certain times of the year, where there is not anything for us to meet, and we would be,
Well, the
Canceling.
thing is, and this brings me to another point. I don't believe that we want to be as accommodating as possible, and I want to work with every department. But at the same time, I don't believe that our staff should be charged at the 11th hour with either transfers or other duties, because people know that they have the last minute to get stuff to us. So I believe that if we know, like if, and I'll just use your example, but if an email had been sent to us and it said, pick your best meeting date, can it be the 7th, the 14th, or the 21st? And 6 of us got back on the 14th, we'd say, oh, the 14th is working for everybody, and then we could march from there, and then now we've already known, because we know that, we've said, well, we know a meeting's coming. I think some of this can get planned weeks in advance, and then we'd be able to know what our workload is, and then we could get our agendas, and whether we're approving minutes or we're looking at items on our agenda, such as some of the things I brought up this evening, we could ask questions, we could formulate some thoughts and come in and smoothly run a meeting. But from where I sit as a board member, I find at times that, we are finding ourselves under the crunch, and I don't think we're being as effective or fair to our members as we should. And I have to speak up, because I'd like a fair opportunity to do, I took an oath to do a service for the town, and I'd like to do it to the best of my ability, and I'd like to know that I've got people working with me, instead of some of the last-minute stuff that seems to be happening.
and part of my support, and Danielle had slipped me, when you were asking a question about things before the select board, she was able to slip me a note as to when the next Board of Selectmen's meeting is scheduled. So there's, a case in point advantage that if people knew when our next finance committee was scheduled, for next month, that could have some benefits. I just think there may be times that we have to be a little flexible in terms
Sure.
of finance.
Sure.
Karen, do you want to speak?
If I could, I actually think it would be a good idea to set like a regular schedule, whether it's a second or third Wednesday, but also keep in mind that we do need flexibility, because I was going to bring up at the end of the meeting that we maybe want to discuss a budget kickoff.
Right.
And that might not necessarily happen on the second or the third in order to get everybody here. So, but I do think the consistency of it is a good idea, because like you said, I might get out there.
Everybody's got a plan.
I might get the information out there saying, that we're going to have a finance committee meeting, and a lot of times, the department heads are trying the best they can to get their information to us, but they're getting it very last minute, and I would rather get it to the committee earlier so that you have a chance to review, ask any questions that you need. So I want to get the information to you earlier.
Right, and actually, now that you've mentioned that, because we have to have a budget kickoff, we can add that to the list of special town meeting, all of our budget stuff and year-end transfers. There are going to be special times, and there are going to be times when those special meetings can actually maybe act as a meeting for the month, because maybe the work in it is enough that, if we're going to do a special budget kickoff, now we've only got 3 transfers. We're going to squeeze those in because we're meeting, and then maybe we save ourselves another meeting. But I just believe that we're all working harder than we need to. And I'd really like to, and I don't know that we have to do it tonight, but I think going into the new budget year, or at the end of the calendar year, we set it up so that we know next August or because, some of us want to plan family vacations, we want to do things. So if we know that we're going to be meeting the second or third Wednesday, starting into the new year, after that, then we can start saying, oh, I won't have a finance committee the whole, from the second week of August all the way through to the second week of September, I can plan my vacation.
I guess based on that, I would ask that maybe Danielle does a little project, and sometimes when you lay these things out on a calendar and you figure out room availability and Board of Selectmen's meetings and
Yeah.
the dates,
Well, that's why
things
I said
things tend to line
Why I
themselves up.
said the second or the third is because I believe the second and the fourth are selectmen's on Mondays. So we would then end up being, the Wednesday, right? If it were the second Wednesday, we would meet the Wednesday right after the Board of Selectmen.
Right, which may, again, the flow of town government may make sense, so. But we'll maybe let Danielle sort of do some homework on where she sees to be the best. And then I do like your idea of when we're laying out that calendar, to lay out the ones that we sort of know are coming.
Right, but the other thing that I wanna stress is that Danielle, she should send out, it would be, and I don't mean she should as if she's not. I'm just saying, I'm thinking out loud. But she should send a communication out. And if somebody can't make the meeting, then I think Danielle has a responsibility to go to the chair of the board and say, I just want you to know that individual C and D didn't get back to me. And I think as a chair, you have to say, guys, she's got a lot of work to do. Get back to her. She shouldn't have to chase, but in all due respect, even myself, I check my email on my phone, I check my email on my computer, and Danielle will tell you, I'll be the first, I didn't get that correspondence. And sure enough, I was looking at my phone and I didn't see it, but it came up on my computer, because it didn't register on my phone quick enough. So I think realistically, Danielle, let's just say, we'll do a hypothetical, that we pick the third Wednesday of the month. So Danielle could technically send something out the first week and say, it's September, it's August, so we're going to be meeting on August 21st. Can you just confirm the availability? And all 6 of us, not including the chair, all 6 of us should, because you better be here, you're going to designate to someone to be here, you're running the meeting, but would have to get back and confirm. And then she would say, she would drop it, and she would just come to you and say, Kevin, are you aware that C and D aren't making the meeting? And then I think you have a responsibility as the chair to say, hey, we've got a solid agenda here. Is there, I don't know, but at least if they you just want to know why they didn't get back to you, to keep it simple.
I agree.
That's not fair to Danielle doing all that work and not getting back to her.
George, do you have anything down there? You seem like you've...
No, I mean, I'm okay with at least having the general, this is our plan, the third Wednesday of the month. I mean, obviously, things could come up for any of us, like
Right.
a last-minute trip or something, but yeah, I think it makes sense with whatever Danielle might find as the week that works. Yeah, I mean, I'll do the same thing. I'll make as many meetings as I can, so it doesn't really affect me too much either way.
Michael, anything? No? Okay. Patrick, anything else on the meetings?
No, I just wanted to that I just feel that, I want to just stress that, this evening, the chief and they made time to come, and, they should be talking to a full board. We're going to get into that part of the budget season where all of this is going to come up, and we're going to have a couple of people that aren't going to be aware of what we learned tonight, and it's going to raise questions. So.
Okay, Patrick, I think your last item on here was the annual town report.
Yeah, there's 2 of them. There's 2 annual reports. So I have to go over something with an annual report for Auburn Youth and Family Service. It'll be very brief. But what I wanted to mention in the current annual report is, which just came out for this, because the one this year I don't believe I've seen. But on page 74, in the past, and I just caught this because I've been reading it. See what happens when you retire, you get extra time on your hands. But in the past, I believe that the Finance Committee, it was respectfully submitted, and it would be the chair. And I didn't realize it until I read it, but all of our names are on it. And I think if my name is going to go on a report, I should see a copy of it before it gets printed. So I just wanted to mention that when this gets done, as a Finance Committee member, I would like to read it. I don't think it's not my right to edit it, but I think I should at least be CC'd as if, this went out with your name on it.
I agree. I've been asked to draft, and I think, Michael, I asked you to help with, I wasn't able to draft for the 25 report, but I've never seen the finished product, so I don't think I was aware that it was being signed by the entire.
So all of our signatures are on the
Yeah, I certainly,
finished product.
I thought it maybe just said chair, as it was just giving a wrap-up of the year. I wasn't aware that everybody's name. Certainly, if that's the case, going forward, I would show that to the committee.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form, to make sure they were in agreement on it, so
Right, so
I
yeah,
apologize.
that's why I'm mentioning it, because all of our names go on it, and I just think to be professional, nobody wants someone to come up to them and say, oh, you signed it.
And certainly, we could certainly nominate you to write the gist for the next
Oh, well,
the next fiscal year.
Yeah, what the heck, So Danielle, unfortunately, I don't have one for these, but I don't know if Sally got you one or not. She just gave me enough for the board members. But these are a copy for you two. So last year, we got the fiscal year 23-24 annual report from Melbourne Youth and Family Services. And if you can pass these to Danielle. Danielle, these are Steve. The people that aren't here, those are their copies. But I just wanted to go over one thing because I caught it and I wanted to take a minute because I told Sally I would do this because she asked me to distribute these.
Patrick, can I just on one thing, just to stick with the agenda, because
Yeah, because
it's really, we only listed as a discussion point was the town report. I don't know if we should,
well, we're not discussing anything, I'm just pointing something out. And
okay,
because
yeah,
it's
if you want to
in-
point it out, I just didn't, if we were going to get into.
No, I'm just pointing out one thing.
Okay.
Just, this is not public related, unless you want me to wait till the meeting's over and I'll just tell you guys in private.
No, that's fine. I'd rather have
All I
it.
wanted to mention is, when they communicate this report to us, if you go to where the pie chart is and on the financial page, I just wanted to point out that if you look at your report, it says fiscal year 25 and 24. And last year, if you were to take this and go back and look at fiscal year 24, you would notice that last year's reports and numbers in that column are different than these numbers. And the reason why they're different is because of the cycle they're on. So they created the annual report before they got their audited financials back. So the numbers that are in last year's report are their fiscal year non-audited financials, and the ones that came into this year's report are audited. Sometimes the audited numbers make it to the report, so if you were to look at both years, they would be the same. But when they're different, it means that they used the number in the prior year before the audit was done. That's in case somebody goes back and looks and says, why are these so off? So that's why I wanted to point it out. But, and I know you're trying to stick to the agenda, but it's hard to do multiple things in that kind of so that's it, that's all I have. Have items for the next agenda.
Minutes, we just have March 19th. Danielle was kind enough to provide us those minutes. If there are any questions, if not, we'll consider.
I read them and I make a motion to accept.
Okay.
We don't have to move.
We don't have to move on, we just.
we don't have to.
Accept it unless someone has an
There you
objection.
go. Right, yeah, gotcha, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other business or things that we want for the next meeting? Anticipate when our next meeting might be held? Are we going to get, well, do we need to meet before?
We don't need to meet before town.
We do not, no.
And town meeting's at 6 o'clock?
Yes. Correct. So,
Items that anybody wants to see as part of the agenda, certainly you can,
Yeah, I have a few.
do you want to?
Sure, so what I wanted to, I have 4 things, but the first one, all these are for the CFO. I know that in the recent year, I know our debt is low, and I know we don't do debt exclusion, and we don't do 2.5s because we're not there. But I know either in the recent selectmen's meeting or during one of our meetings, we did comment that debt is low. But I don't believe that the fire department, none of that is in there yet. So I just want to get a sense if we're at 2% of our operating budget or if we're at 3%. Can you get the percent of debt? Because we have debt coming on. So we shouldn't really be more than 5 or 6% of our operating. So I just wanted to get some kind of a debt update before we start borrowing, because we have the warrant articles and the firehouse going in. So I want to get an idea where we stand with the debt schedule for the next meeting. And then I believe the selectmen are setting the tax rate at their first meeting, the second Tuesday of December. Is that still accurate?
November 10th.
They're doing it November 10th. So it's not December, they're doing it on November 10th.
That's correct.
Okay, so rate setting is November 10th.
Well, it's not really setting the rate, it's approving the classifications.
Yeah, the classification hearing. So with that, then, Do we know what the shift in residential and commercial is going to be yet?
That's what they're going to be discussing at
That's what they're
at
going to
that meeting.
discuss. So it hasn't been finalized, it's going to be discussed.
Correct.
Okay. And so we won't know what the tax levy is until we've discussed that. Do we know what the current year budget tax levy is going to be?
Well, in my presentation, I gave a proposed, the one that I gave last night, plus that was set up, a proposed tax levy if all of the articles are approved at the special town
But
meeting.
I think that is just the current one, that's for the new, but not for the new budget, right?
Fiscal '26.
It's, right, but I'm saying we're going to be doing fiscal year '27's budget. So you're talking about the,
Fiscal
wait a minute, we're
'27.
in '25, you're right. Okay, so this is all for '26.
No, we're in
So all of
'26
that
right
is
now.
going to take place at the next meeting. So we don't need to put that on the next agenda because that'll all take place on November 10th.
Yes.
Okay. The only other thing that I have, I know the board, after we transitioned from Ed to yourself and Dory was stepping in, that we were told as a board that we could look at some significant changes in the budget process. And so with that, we were told that there would be narratives expected, extra columns, with things that were previously suggested, and maybe something that showed transfers. There'd be, any of that been implemented in the shell of the new budget that's being created? Will
Well,
some-
we haven't started the new budget, but I know that Dory's thinking about it, so it's going to be soon.
Okay. So we're like a month and a half away and we don't have a shell yet? Is that sort of
A month and a half away from what?
from, I mean, I would think that, my understanding in listening to the selectmen a few weeks ago is that Dory had said that, you know, she wanted to get sort of their wish list. And with their wish list, she said, well, we're going to be starting the budget process very soon. So I took that as you're working on it as we speak now that a few weeks have gone by.
No, that is not the case. However, the town manager has communicated to me that she wants to have a meeting with herself, myself, the chair and vice chair of finance, and then the chair and vice chair of the Board of Selectmen to discuss priorities for the fiscal '27 budget. So that'll be coming up soon.
Okay. But no discussion on the presentation to the committee?
Not yet.
Okay. The last thing I was going to ask you is, would it be possible for the CFO to get a breakout of the current year budget's contractual lease agreement and debt, or anything in the operating budget that's not flexible, fixed costs? So if we have, you know, I mean, so for instance, we have people right now that are in certain departments that their salary is going to go up in the next budget, whether we want to or not, because it's contractual. Not whether we want it or not isn't the right word. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to understand the flexibility in the budget. I don't think that we're going to have much flexibility in the budget. And so as a result of that, I'm trying to understand the amount of growth that's going to be required to sustain all of our fixed costs. And the only way that I can get that is if I understand sort of what is fixed. Is it 75% of the budget? I think it's over 80, but I don't know what that is because it's sort of broken out.
But I think that's what we're going to be working on, putting together the fiscal '27 budget.
So there's no way for you to separate out what's contractual and what's lease and what's fixed and what's you know, sort of,
Well, I think I can as we go along with the budget, but I would say, let us get started with that, and then we'll work towards that.
Sure. Well, through the chair, I bring up all of this now because, as you can see, we're starting to move in that direction. It'd be a little late to ask for it in December when they could come back and say, well, you know, we've been working on the budget, we wish you would ask that sooner. So I'm not sure of the timing of when to ask this. So that's why I'm requesting it for the next meeting.
Okay,
But
okay,
gives the two of you something to think about when you go and sit down with them.
okay.
Thank you.
Karen?
So while we're on this discussion, so maybe we can discuss a potential meeting date for November, and then we can also discuss the potential date for a budget kickoff. The town manager did mention potentially November 19th as the budget kickoff, but I think that that might be a little bit ambitious. So I was wondering if maybe we could think of Wednesday, December 3rd for the budget kickoff, and either the 19th or the 12th for the meeting in November for finance?
November 25 is the 5th or the 12th.
The 12th or the 19th?
12th or the 19th, okay.
Right, because then the next week is the Thanksgiving week.
December 3rd, she said.
Oh, you're meeting December 3rd? Oh, or a meeting December 3rd, okay.
See, okay.
So does either the 12th or the 19th work better for the committee?
That's just for a regular meeting.
Right. We want to say November 19th, and I'm going to try to also bring the transfers for the salary transfers that need to get done for union and non-union.
So propose on the 19th for a regular meeting?
Right.
And then the December,
Potentially December 3rd. I did ask the town manager if that would work. I haven't heard back from her yet. I was hoping we could go with that date. Last year, it wasn't until the 11th, but I think that that's a little late.
So you're saying the 3rd is the budget kickoff, is that sort of the target date?
Potentially, yes, yes.
do we have any issues with those?
All those work for me.
They all work for me as well.
Okay. Okay, we'll plan on that, so we'll plan on the 19th for a regular meeting?
November 19th.
And then the 3rd pending hearing from the town manager for the budget. Perfect. Okay.
Great, so we know we're meeting just November 19th?
Potentially the 3rd of December.
If we decide that the budget kickoff will be the 19th, will you just let us know in advance? 'Cause
Oh,
that'll be a
absolutely.
longer,
No, because I hope
Longer
to
meeting,
find out tomorrow to make sure that we're all on the same page with the date.
just only put it on my calendar for an hour. I don't know, I'll extend it out a little further if it's going to be the budget.
Danielle. Okay, if there's nothing further, last item is the motion to adjourn. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Patrick, you seem hesitant, like you had something else?
No, I'm good.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned.